The final session of the 2021 Northwest Green Building Slam and Summit. This session is Where's the Joy in Construction? Got work to do. To start this session, we would like to take a moment to honor the land and to thank its original stewards. In the Seattle area, we are on the ancestral land of the Duwamish and Salish Sea tribes. If you're attending from another area, you can follow that link on the lower right hand of the slide to find out whose traditional land you work and live on. We'd also like to take a minute to thank our sponsors. Our presenting sponsors are Dunn Lumber, Small Planet Supply, and Tacoma Public Utilities. Our sustaining sponsors are King County Green Tools and Faros Creative. Our supporting sponsors are 475 High Performance Building Supply, Mighty Energy Solutions, Northwest LED Lighting, the Energy Trust of Oregon, and Green Home Solutions. Our contributing sponsors are Board and Vellum, Ecotope, Home Instead, Model Remodel, Second Use, Umpqua Bank, Coons Construction LLC, Pathway Design and Construction, Speak with Power Consulting. And finally, our education partners are Built Green and Sustainable Building Week. This event is really not possible without the support of all of their sponsors, and we are truly grateful to them. And now I am going to hand it over to Chris Landingin and Jason Lear.
Hello. There you go. I was just wondering if we were going to remain so tiny. My name is Chris Landingin, and I use she, her pronouns. And I used to do education, was part of the education committee at the Guild, and now I'm excited to be able to speak with you all here at the summit. This is my first time speaking at the Guild Summit, and I've gone to plenty of slams. It's probably one of my favorite things. I work at Batten Lear. I'm a project manager, and I'm really, really interested in finding creative ways to tackle climate change through climate justice. I think that's all I wanted to say. Jason?
Hi, I'm Jason Lear. I use he, him pronouns. I'm really glad to be here today and to be part of all of this. And I'm really honored to be presenting with you, Chris. Thanks for leading into that with me. I kind of want to tell you where I come from in a lot of ways. Well, where I come from most of the time is from my heart. I'm here today because what gets me up in the morning is work that I'm passionate about, people that I enjoy being with, and I really enjoy making things. We'll talk more about joy in a little bit. I also have had a long history of volunteering with the Guild, and I guess full disclosure, was on the board of the Northwest Eco Building Guild for the full tenure that I was allowed, and then I was kicked off. Happy to have served that time and been a volunteer for that time. Really excited to be presenting here today. I am one of the founders of Batten Lear. Chris and I have been working together for years. My co-founder of Batten Lear is my wife, Holly Batt, not with us today. And what I do in my daily work at Batten Lear is a whole host of things that an owner of a company, a small company, can do. But for the most part, I participate in design and the transition from design to construction. As a leader as well, just as Chris is a leader. I have something I'd like to ask of all of you. We're going to make the remainder of this session as participatory and conversational as we can. We're going to be using some tools that will help us do that. But I want to ask, and this is similar to an ask you've heard in this conference if you've been participating ahead of this session. want to ask that if you are what I called the other day a first responder, and I don't mean somebody who is a paramedic necessarily, but if you tend to be the kind of person who, when you hear a question or you hear an idea, you speak first, I'd ask you to pause right now and ask yourself maybe why that is. Examine it. Were you taught to be that way? Was that what was modeled? Is that what got you what you got? I am a first responder. I speak first often. I interrupt a lot. I try not to. I'm learning. But I'd ask myself to be willing to make space for someone else who maybe doesn't respond first, who needs a little more time to think. So it's my deep ask of y'all today. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Chris to tell us what we're up to.
Yeah, that's a good segue because we're going to be trying to hold space for each other. What I'm really hoping that this session is about is practicing how to listen and how to share and how to build trust with people. And I know that we really only have a few minutes with each other, really. And so Jason and I are going to try to we're going to try to um, be an example or model for you a discussion about things that are really close to our hearts and what makes us joyful about our work and the obstacles that are in the way of that joy. And so Jason and I will kind of have a dialogue with you, and Helen is going to write on a whiteboard some of list our joys, list some of our obstacles, so that and it's going to be on a whiteboard so that you all can return to it as we're speaking. And then I'm going to invite you all into breakout rooms, and I'm going to ask you to be in tables no more than 4, because you're going to have 20 minutes to share 2 joys, 2 obstacles, and to listen to each other. And what I'd like to do is have one person from each table, and pick whoever, to share with us at the end. And so we'll spend the remainder of the time sharing those possibly vulnerable stories, anecdotes, maybe some themes. Again, I will go ahead and again, right before we go into breakout session, I'll give you some more things to think, more specific instructions, but I just wanted you to know kind of how the session will go. First, a dialogue between Jason and I, the breakout session, and then coming back together to share. Yeah. And Jason, is there anything else that I should include in that for now, since that's just kind of the setting expectations?
Yeah. Thanks for asking, first of all, because another tendency that we first responders have, I notice, is to summarize what other people say. And so I'm going to do in my practice in life right now as trying to be a good leader and a good participant in the work we do. I'm not going to re-say what you said. I think you did a fine job. I do wonder if you want to tell folks why we're doing this.
Yes, I would love to orient us all into why practicing these uncomfortable conversations with each other will be so important to our ability to actually make lasting change and change the systems that are destroying our earth and destroying our air and our ecosystems, like natural ecosystems and our personal relation ecosystems. We need to learn how to we need to practice, and we need to find other people to practice with. Yeah. So why I think this is very important is that one of the reasons I think this is really important is a lot of people are having a hard time hiring, right? We're having a hard time hiring. We're having a hard time retaining. Having a hard time creating strong teams to tackle any problem, really, that we're facing, whether that's the project we're working on or whether it's a tussle that maybe a couple of our coworkers are having together. We just don't have the tools, and we should start practicing those things. And if we want to address climate change and we want to include if we want to have a diverse workforce that is resilient, that has several points of view, that is not a monoculture, we're going to have to learn how to talk with each other and have hard conversations and keep practicing. Anything else, Jason? What about for you? Why is this conversation important for you?
This conversation is one that we clearly need to have. It's my heart telling me. You and I are continuing to try to have this conversation aside from this presentation, and it's not over. It's not a short one. It's one we're hoping we can help begin with others. We're hoping we hear some things from you all that enlighten us, that give us a spark. But man, I gotta tell you, it's just like you said to me the other day. I want joy in my work. And it isn't as easy as asking for it. It isn't as easy as doing what I used to do when I got joy. The old formula maybe doesn't work. And there's so much growth for us as people available in front of us. And I want to be part of that growth. I want to be part of the better world that we want to create. We keep saying at the Guild, at Built Green conference that I participated in this month, we keep saying it isn't sustainable if it doesn't include everyone. We say we need to include a social equity component. We say people matter as much as planet. And this stuff is just not easily cracked, and I want to talk about it.
All right.
And can I just give you a note for everyone? I got a lot of joy out of doing this in the last session I was in. I think a song keeps sitting with me today, and it's a song that Chris actually introduced me to, and I'm just going to sing a few words of it. It's a good day to fight the system, to fight the system. It's a good day to fight the system. All right, let's do it.
Okay. So, I mean, I think we have to lead with where's the joy. We need to lead with joy, because why are we in construction anyway? If there aren't things that get us up in the morning, right?
Yeah. So what's going to happen right now is Helen's already on it, I think. Am I right? Helen is going to pull up a whiteboard in front of us, and you're going to see, hopefully, my face, Chris's face in little boxes.
Here we go.
Helen's it's a whiteboard, a virtual whiteboard up there in front of you. And she is going to be scribing, thank you, Helen, as we talk. So Chris, we're going to have our conversation, and I'm going to try not to be reading and talking at the same time. It's a little bit hard for me, but I'm going to try. And now we're going to start by me asking you, Chris, and I mean this just as I asked it the other day. What does give you joy in this work? I'm curious. Chris, you're actually known. I don't know if you know this. You're kind of famous for your high fives. There are some people who actually will talk about how their hands hurt because your high five is so vigorous. I've seen you do jumping high fives. You are famous for the joy you bring to the room sometimes. you're famous, at least among the communities I know you to be in here. And I'm sure you have many communities I don't know a lot about. But tell me, what is it?
What is it that makes me high five people in my workplace? I mean, specifically, those high fives are. I'm so glad to be working with people who are like-minded, that are value systems, that I am a part of communities that when I run out of energy, or that I'm downtrodden about something, that since I'm surrounded by people who are like-minded, and care about me, that they're there to carry me a little bit during that time of low energy. And that is definitely a source of joy in construction, is that so much of our work has to be group. It's a group project, and we've got to figure it out together. Um, I really like that. I really thrive in a group setting, and in collaboration. I also get a lot of joy from precise woodworking, like miter joints fitting together, like coping, and so problem solving, being together, precise work, um, finding a tribe, finding a community. Uh, yeah, I get a lot of joy out of hearing from a client, listening to a client about what they want, and and making that 3D for them. Um,
Cool.
and not just a dream. We're putting it in their houses. We're putting it on their land. They can live in these dreams, and that is definitely something that brings me joy. Um, yeah.
It sounds like several good, clear themes there. You actually did a good job of kind of coming back to those points just now. That community, those connections you make, that I'm trying not to summarize. I can't remember your words, and I can't zoom in on that very easily and still look at you. But thank you for sharing those joys. Is there more? Do you want to remind me, do you want to ask me about my joys first, or should I ask you about your obstacles?
No, let's talk about the joys. Let's get all the joys together. Oops, so Jason, you have a very different spot in, so the way that I intersect with a construction community is that I'm a project manager in a design build firm. And I worked in the cabinet shop, I worked in the field, and I work a lot on computers, and I work with clients and subcontractors. Um, you have a different perspective, and you have a different place in our shared industry. What are the joys? You have a different place professionally, and you have a different stance and a position in the world. What are the joys that you have in our industry?
Well, I get a ton of joy out of that, stepping back from something that we've spent a whole lot of energy and a whole lot of time making together as a team with a client, and realizing, wow, okay, they had a set of problems they came to us with. We solved that set of problems, and then we asked them to go a little further with us, and we together discovered more things that actually maybe made that house last a lot longer, maybe made something that contributed to the environment rather than taking away from it. I mean, you hear me talk this talk sometimes. Like, I think that when a house or a building can contribute more than it takes, you've really accomplished something. And I get a lot of joy when I can back up from that. Man, when we're close in and we're in the middle of the forest and we're not seeing that yet, I'm not saying it's joy all along the way. I'm describing that moment when you push back and you say, look at what we did together. And there is a big togetherness about that. I would say that's kind of a second articulated joy for me is, and it sounds similar to one of yours, Chris, that I love doing this work as a group. I love when it feels like a great group, like, wow, we collaborated, we did that together. And there's no one single person who deserves credit for it. It's actually the effort of quite a few. And, you know, when we can loop the client into that, it's even the more pleasing, right? The client, and that client could be, you know, somebody, we often do custom work, right? So that could be somebody who paid us to help them get there. But I, you know, when I even doing small volunteer work, just the client being someone who's like, will you show up and help us dig this hole today? And that client participates in one way or another in the creation of that thing. There's a lot of joy that comes from that. Getting up in the morning and picturing creative innovation, fabulousness, as I called it in my session about reclaiming wood. I don't see things through a doomsday lens most often. I see things through an inspiration lens. And when I feel like we are creating and innovating, setting a new horizon, setting a new standard, I get a lot of joy from that too.
Yeah, that shows in our collaborations together. And I'm sure that other folks in the guild can attest to getting some of that afterglow of the Jason joy.
I hope. So it feels to me, Chris, unless you have more questions for me about that, it feels to me like we need to talk about, okay, these sound like pretty good joys.
Yeah.
The stuff you're talking about, like, I imagine there's some universality to some of that kind of joy, that there are others who feel similar kinds of joy from this very work or other work. Yeah, nice comment from Eric, by the way. I happen to notice Helen is doing an amazing job.
Yes, thank you, Helen.
So, Chris, can you tell me what stands in the way of these joys for you? We're calling them obstacles. Talk to me about your obstacles. What are the obstacles for you?
Yeah.
When trying to attain these joys, or retain.
Retain some of the joys, because I feel like sometimes it's hard to access those joys, those things that get me up in the morning and make me want to continue working in construction. There are definitely things. Especially for me, I feel like I identify as I'm queer, I am a woman, and I am Filipino. And there are a lot of obstacles for me to be in the construction world. And to feel successful and joyful. Well, like, sure, I have survived. I have survived the construction world, and I am not. And there are times where it does not feel like thriving, because it feels like a struggle. It feels like a struggle to be in the construction world with my identities, and so even to hone my skills, to cut that miter cut, there may be obstacles for me to be in the field, just because people don't even want me there. People don't want me in their shops. It took a really long time for somebody to feel like I had the skills to work in construction. It feels like I'm constantly having to prove myself. I am apparently a geriatric millennial, and is what they're calling us now. And a lot of the things that I learn or see or think about are in meme form. And so I have these, Helen has put on this whiteboard a couple of memes that have been important for me to be able to um, articulate some of the obstacles to joy in construction for me. And I wanted to share these things with you. I have to admit that I was very nervous about this session, because I will be sharing with a group of people that I can't even see your faces, and I know that some of you have known me for several years, almost a decade, um, and um, and I will be sharing parts of myself that are very tender. um,
We got you.
Thanks, Jason. And I hope that it inspires people to be vulnerable with each other and get to practice how to hold space for people who are having a hard time sharing difficult stories from their life or hard earned positions in the world. So, um, I'm gonna collect myself. So,
You don't have to.
um, one of the things that let's focus on a couple of these memes here, Helen. You've got this one is I feel like this is an obstacle to joy, that nobody wants to work anymore. Nobody ever wanted to work at all. We wanted to be productive, be creative, be part of a community, be supported, be validated, and have time and space to truly rest. No one actually wants to trade in hours of their life to earn necessities. That was extremely powerful to me in this meme or statement is extremely powerful to me, because I it I have been wondering, why is it so difficult to fill some of these positions, right? Like, we're offering a lead position. We're trying to grow leadership in our company. Like, why don't people, but I mean, we're talking about this in all sorts of industries, not just the construction industry, right? Why don't people want to work anymore? Like, it's not that we don't want to work. I mean, volunteers at the guild would tell you that, like, it's not about work. It's, we're very productive people and creative people, but we don't want to necessarily tie our um, tie our livelihoods to the things that bring us joy, right? Um, so if we're leaders in our construction communities, and we're trying to create cultures where people want to continue coming to work, I think that we have to face that people aren't just here for the money. People are here and they want to work to be able to feel fulfilled in their lives, to feel validated. So when you are thinking about how to retain the good people that you have in your company, think about supporting them, supporting their creativity, supporting them when they say that. um, just think about your cultures and how you can support people, not just with money, but with seeing them as people, and not just as folks who are going to carry out a task at a certain time and make sure that we're on time and on budget. Like, those things bring me joy. It's true, but that's not all who I am. Can we move to the climate change meme? Yeah, this one, this wave. I think this one's a little funny, but it carries a lot of weight for me, for like the obstacles to joy in construction, specifically in the green building world. That if we don't, like, I feel like I have heard people say this in past, like, just in conversation, that like, why would we be worried about all these little things like healthcare, free school, and justice, and all of these little things, when this wave of climate change is going to take out the whole entire building anyway? Um, but if you don't care about those things, and if we don't talk about them, and if we as green building like contractors are only focused on um, green building, finding the next best green building product, and we're not worried about where what's going on with why we can't retain our employees of color, and why we don't have women in leadership, and why we haven't provided healthcare, or why our employees aren't showing up to work because they're depressed or whatever. If we're not worried about those things, it doesn't matter if you can buy the best insulation and new insulation, or develop the next best insulation, or make the tightest house. You won't have people to do those things anymore. You won't have people to do them with. You won't have people to solve problems with. Anyways, so I don't know. I think so. There, the meme with the panda. I think that will just, yeah. The meme with the panda, that kind of goes in with me, or sorry, for me, that's a good segue for kind of my closing about obstacles in construction for me. That my greatest joys are about working with people and solving problems with people. And it's not really that important. Even if the wave was coming and it was going to take us all out, I'd still want to be in that building, taking care of the people in that building with me. That's and I feel like the construction industry, that is not always, that's not always the focus. People are not the focus. And I'd really love to have a community in the Eco Builders Guild who would talk to me about those things, and that we would create a way to focus on people within this struggle against climate change.
I hear you, Chris.
I hope that wasn't too rambling, y'all.
No, you're getting a lot of good feedback. I don't know if you're looking at the chat at all. I actually got lost in what you were saying, forgetting that you and I are supposed to be modeling a conversation. I think it's okay in a conversation to get lost in what you're saying. But I think I started looking at the chats and the love and the clapping, and I became an audience member myself. I think that's okay. Chris, I hear a pretty strong theme coming out of both your joys and your obstacles. Do you mind if I
Sure.
say
Yeah, I
what
think
I'm hearing?
we would serve to have a little bit of summary from all of that.
Yeah, and I don't even mean summary. I just notice this thread of people and community and caring about people. And I hear you saying that that is sometimes, or even sometimes often, not present for you in the construction industry. Would it be okay if you helped me understand that just a little bit more? Like, how does that show up or not show up for you in in the construction industry?
I'm trying. Can you repeat the question? I'm trying. I think that I was trying to catch Helen's. Sorry.
Oh,
Can you start again about the question, Jason?
the question is, if what is both your joy and your obstacle is actually relationships, um, can you talk a little bit more about how those relationships, that listening, that support of community, how I'm trying not to summarize, trying to use words that I think I heard. Uh, how's that not showing up for you? How is it standing as an obstacle?
Oh,
Can
how
you help me the
how some
obstacle?
of my relationships are standing as obstacles?
Yeah.
Um, I think this is what you're asking. I How are some of my relationships also obstacles? Um,
Or what's not? I mean, I think I heard you say that in the construction industry, the care for people, the care for human beings is not showing up in the way that you'd like to see it show up.
yes. I think this is the start, is that we need to be listening to each other and sharing well, I don't want to say we need to be sharing our stories, because sometimes that also is a difficulty, right? When someone comes up to you, I mean, I've had people on in the workplace, literally in the field, be like, what is it like being a lesbian? No, I don't want to talk to you about my stories about being a lesbian and about my life in that way, while we're putting insulation into these wall cavities. No, no thanks. But um, I I think that we are all coming from very different perspectives, and we can sometimes trample on each other in meetings, um, in that collaborative effort, um, because we don't see that we're always the first responder, or that we don't we don't that we haven't practiced how to hold space and just listen. Um, so I think that this is a big step, I think, for people to be part of this conversation. Um, I or any conversations like this. Does that help? Does that answer your question?
I think so. I mean, I think you're doing a good job of listening to try to hear what is the content of my question. And I'm realizing that you've maybe in some ways already answered my question. And it's just by listening more deeply. Um, and I'm not doing as good a job as I'd like to be doing right now. I am. I'm thinking about what I need to say when you ask me what my obstacles are. I'm going to admit that that is not a good listening practice.
I will also admit that when I had to have you repeat your question because I was trying to read some of the chat, and I realized, like, I'm just gonna read the chat later.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, so Jason, what are, like, we, as I said in in the session description, we come from very different parts. We perspectives, not even just in the construction world, but just in general. Like, you have different obstacles, um,
Yeah, I do.
and I'm wondering if you're willing to share them with us.
I'll admit, this is where it's strange to feel as vulnerable as I do when I share these. Valerie had the wherewithal to already ask in the chat, what's it like being a straight white man? I assume you're talking to me. Um, that is actually, in some ways, one of my obstacles. There are so many things that I've learned in becoming what portrays as a straight white male, as a father, as a business owner, as a husband, that get in my own way. One of those is thinking that I need to figure it all out myself and then declare it or deliver it as an edict. And at the same time, another thing that gets in my way is too much egalitarianism or too much democracy. Right? Like, I want everyone to be heard so much, and then I want to bring it together, and then I want to give everybody opportunities, and I feel like I've been given this privileged spot to be in, and I got to do this. I, and it's getting lost in I. And I know this isn't what I said to you the other day, Chris, because I've given it some thought. I think this is more authentically. Yes, we did rehearse for this session. This is more authentically true. And I'll be honest, to this group, I portray as a straight white male. That is not the whole truth. And no, and yes, you can ask me about it sometime. I also grew up food stamps poor, and these are things I don't share with people very much, but it's certainly a lot of my identity. There was scarcity of food in my house when I was young, and I was second generation to go to college. I went to a fancy college. I got a lot of financial aid because we were still kind of poor. So I get an Ivy League education. I've learned to be the white male portraying individual that I am. I stay, I'll just say it, closeted bisexual. I try to be who I am in the world, and I don't know what I'm doing a lot of the time. And I wonder if I'm enough sometimes. I wonder if I'm doing all that I was supposed to do. I got all this privilege. I got all these things. Sure, I was poor, but then I got to go to a fancy school, and I did a good education, and I got to start my own company, and we had some early success. And I had accolades around me for the work we did, for the culture we created. And I watched some of that fall apart in downturns, in tough times like now. And I think I'm not enough.
Yeah.
That's what gets in my way.
Yeah. We do
And I'm
need
embarrassed to say that.
You're embarrassed to say that there are. What are you embarrassed about?
I'm embarrassed to admit that it's a privileged position, it feels to me, to be able to say I'm not enough. What am I accomplishing everything I'm supposed to be accomplishing? I still hang in this I perspective, and I'm a little embarrassed by that.
You're working on it.
Thanks.
These are obstacles to our joy. How are these obstacles? I can see how they are obstacles to your joy in construction. How do you see these, instead of focusing on your privilege, um, how are these obstacles to your joy in construction?
Well, the joys that I was describing, you know, when I spend so much of my effort and time thinking that I need to glue things back together or find that culture again or create it, or, you know, spending this time, and I lose track of what's going around, with the good that's going on around me, right? The good work that those right in front of me might be doing. And I'm not, you know, I wasn't prepared to answer that question, but that's the best answer I can come up with right now. Like, it's the sense in which I'm getting in my own way.
Yeah.
And the way you know, it's interesting to me that I'm the first one saying the patriarchy in this conversation, but, you know, I got taught by this patriarchy, and I'm trying to do the best I can at what I was taught to do. And that is getting in my way.
I think it's a great point to remember that the patriarchy harms more than just women. It harms us all.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing these thoughts, Jason. And these very vulnerable feelings with all of us.
Thanks for
Is there
asking.
more that you would like to share about obstacles to your joy in construction?
No, and it's because I want people to have a little bit of time to
Yeah.
share theirs.
Yeah.
And I'm ready for that. If you feel like you are.
I think so. I think we're ready. Let's go ahead. And so our hope was, thank you everyone for listening to us and for coming to this session and engaging each other. And this next portion is going to be going into small groups and kind of continuing this vulnerable conversation. However, four people can hold space with it for each other, and maybe the only root needs to be is that we all attended this summit. We're all interested in asking the questions of how can we do better, and just have a conversation for, let's say, 15 for four people, let's say, share one or two joy.
Uh-oh. Chris, you cut out for a second.
We'll check in at 15, and maybe use the next 5 minutes. Oh yeah, maybe we should have I did see this. Can we have a 2-minute break? That's great. Yeah, let's take so let's say we'll be in breakout rooms for 22 minutes. Helen or whoever's doing the breakout room session, that let's go ahead and put people in their rooms. And then if you need a break, because we have been intensely listening for almost an hour now, and do what you need to do. And so you'll have 17 minutes. Then we'll check in at 17, or, should we just do 20? Do we have time for that?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, let's just do 20. We'll check in at 20 and see if people can kind of wrap up in the last couple of minutes I'd really like to share with each other a couple of maybe themes that come out of from the breakout sessions.
And warning that we may ask you to come up on stage, which I don't know still functionally how we're going to do that. Maybe you can help us. Can you tell us how we might do that at the end of this breakout?
Yeah, I need to give them permission. So if they can notify in the chat, I'd like to speak, I can give them permission. Also, real quickly, one thing I do want to say is some people may not have been able to shift during the presentation mode. So just take a couple of seconds to jump to a table, no more than 4. And I'm wondering if I can ask Jason a question, maybe it's more of a clarifying question that might help people think about their joys and obstacles, if that, just real quickly, would that be okay? Yeah. Okay, so you had made reference to your old formula and how that old formula no longer brings you joy. Can you kind of expand on that a little bit to kind of frame things and get people thinking a little bit about challenging our conventional thought?
It's not a simple answer. Thanks for asking the question. I'll try to give a short version.
Sure.
I will tell you that when I thought it was as easy as finding, I thought I probably had developed, I had a gift for, or I had a sense of, or I developed a talent for identifying awesome people with good aptitude. And that if I sat with them and could feel into that and tap those people and put them in the same room, put them in the same work with them, that was enough. And I got lucky. We got lucky. Pat and Lear got lucky. Our projects got lucky for a lot of years over the last 21. That has worked, but it does not always work. And sometimes it can really fall apart. And sometimes people can be hurt. And it's acknowledging that and realizing that the work is bigger than just putting the right people in the room at the right time.
Yeah.
Chris has helped me put words to that. Thank you, Chris. But that's my best answer to your question.
Thank you.
When you come back, if you're willing to raise your hand and come up on stage, what you're being asked to do is try to call out to us you don't have to share all your joys and all your obstacles. We're asking you to draw out what are you drawing out from this? What is your theme? What's showing up? What keeps showing up? What do you want to share that you think we need to hear? Is that an okay way to say it, Chris?
Absolutely. And remember, it's totally okay for totally okay for you to turn your video off. And it's totally okay and for any reason, turn your video off, to have silence and to hold that silence for people, to ask people to clarify, all of those things.
You have a whiteboard in your room too. If you want to use it, you can write on.
Yeah. I was going to try, Jason and I were going to try and join the groups, but we discussed beforehand that 4 is a good number for how little time we have, and that we didn't want to, kind of jump into the bubble that you're creating for each other. And I wanted to say that so that you could really feel like the 4 of you will be creating a bubble of trust and vulnerability with each other. And we don't want to, we want you to be able to maintain that.
And we trust you.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I'm going to turn presentation mode off. That means we'll go back to the floor. And then when we're ready to resume, I'll turn it back on and we'll be back in this space.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. I'm going to turn the microphone back over to Jason and Chris, but I do want to remind folks that if you do want to speak up anonymously, please go to the Q&A. That's the only place that you can do so anonymously.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for talking with each other. Does anybody, I think Helen is does anybody feel up for sharing on if they would like to be called to the stage? Kathy.
Nice. And
Nice.
remember, you can raise your hand as well. Oh, look, Kathy's on the stage with us.
Hello. So I was talking with Azami and Jensen, and they're in carpentry and site superintendent, and I'm in residential architecture. And the themes that we came up with, it tended to be about fitting and about relationships with people, but we all had different experiences with it. So example would be, like encountering this like toxic patriarchal abusive behavior on the construction site was a challenge, but then like having this community of teachers and mentors and developing the confidence and courage to stand up to that and to not feel as discouraged about it was really empowering. Versus like finding it hard to be motivated to do work alone and stay on task when there's too much leeway, but then being in an industry where you can be part of a team and where everyone knows what they're doing and things just click into place and it feels really good. And then kind of away from the teamwork is just like feeling that you can create a business where you are autonomous in your work. This was me, where you don't have to work in an architecture firm and I can have autonomy. And I really enjoyed the freedom and not feeling like I had to push myself into a office culture that I just was never really clicking in.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, but you've continued to find community through like the guild.
Well, I mean, that was my challenge, was working that in construction, you have to work in a team. You can't do everything yourself and you have to trust other people. So I think that's a challenge, but also an opportunity for personal growth for me to learn to do that.
Yeah. Thanks
So,
for sharing that.
all right.
Thanks for sharing your group as well. Your the themes from your group as well.
Yeah. Being the brave first responder.
I want to get it over.
Is there someone else? Eric Shields. Hi, Eric.
Hi. So we had an interesting theme in our group that I wanted to take the larger discussion and kind of get your general thought on it. And it was around the idea of guilt, where we feel like, the feeling like you can't do enough or that you can't find the capacity to do enough. That there's just always this feeling of, especially in a privileged position, being a person of privilege in many ways. How do we fight that guilt of, how not feeling like you can ever do enough without breaking yourself, but also the other side of it, which is, making sure that if we find a way to counter the guilt, to not just become lazy and not, do things because, now you don't feel guilty about it. So just curious what your thoughts were on that general thought pattern.
Jason, do you have? I feel like this is related to. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is. And what the way that the thread that I see and hear in what you're saying and what I've been hearing from others lately, I don't know if this is a common thread in culture for us right now, but I think it's happened on our teams. It's what's behind that, I think, is scarcity, right? There's a notion that there isn't enough of you to go around, or there isn't enough time, or there isn't enough something to accomplish what we're supposed to accomplish. And that's, in my experience, a dangerous and slippery slope, right? To allow ourselves to come from scarcity as compared to abundance. What if, and the guild has been a great environment for fostering this kind of talk and thinking, what if there were more boats floating because we shared more ideas, because we supported each other? What if it wasn't about my team or myself has to accomplish X before I die, but rather what if we need to get more boats floating? And what I do today is as much about accomplishing my tasks as it is about kind of patching that boat over there, or helping to finish build it. Does that boat analogy serve? Do you feel like I'm addressing what you're saying?
I believe it makes sense to me. Let me reword it to see if I understand it properly. The idea basically being that rather than thinking from the perspective of what can I do to alleviate problems X, Y, and Z, how can I raise other people up into a position that they can also help fix X, Y, and Z?
Yeah. More boats floating means more fixing X, Y, and Z, or more greatness, more joy, perhaps. I see the chat's kind of rolling pretty strong now too.
This
you
feels,
have prompted some threads about guilt.
yeah.
Cool. All
Valerie.
right, well, I will jump
Oh.
off of the stage and let the next person on then.
Great. I wanted to see, so,
Thanks, Eric.
or can that transition to self-awareness? And so Valerie's written guilt, or can that transition to self-awareness and a commitment to bettering the world in community? Oh, yeah. Can that transition? Yeah, yes, exactly.
Reframing the notion of guilt, is that what
Hmm.
maybe Valerie's saying about
I think so.
transitioning? And Helen and Jenny are both talking about, what is the I mentality? I spoke about that. I think we just heard Eric speak about that. There is this persistent sense that perhaps definitely is taught to us by the patriarchal system, that if you've ever read The Fountainhead, like the architect, the pioneering solo architect is supposed to make it all amazing as a vehicle of genius. And that's sort of anti-community in some senses. You could read that book as an anti-community book. The individual must conquer. And maybe when we say I'm not enough, or I'm supposed to accomplish a bunch, that's what we think we're all about. Better. But maybe we're about I.
Yeah.
Hi, Valerie.
Hi, Valerie. Nice
Hi.
to finally see your face.
I was thinking that about you, Chris, earlier. We've been on the phone
Yes, we have.
and we've never seen each other. I can't wait to come to Seattle and high five you.
Oh, I got it
You
waiting.
know you have to look at the elbow, right?
That's right.
Oh yeah,
That's
Chris, what
how that
I'm
happens. That's how that happens. That's how the hand winds up hurting afterwards. You look at the elbow, not the hand.
Yep. Every time.
Yep. Also, welcome to my actual outdoor office, my porch. Jason, this is where we have a lot of our phone calls.
Yep. Are you here to share for your table?
For the group, yeah. I wanted to kind of bring some similar themes. I feel like there's probably a lot of yes, tips and tricks about high fives. There's so many common themes that I heard in our group as well, in that balance between individual all the way up through global scale, and how to find joy throughout, and then also find the balance throughout in terms of like, how do you spend your time and your focus? Is it on self-betterment? Is it on your family? Is it, volunteering in the local neighborhood? Is it coming up with like the thing that's going to save the world for those kids and that family and that neighborhood? There's just so much on our plates right now. And a big part of that I keep hearing has to do with who we're working with, right? So are we working with people who share our values and kind of have similar processes for working together, so that we can move from the collaborative stage of idea development and actually get to implementation, where implementation is not designed by committee. We've already figured out how to implement, right? We don't need 20 people to swing the same hammer.
Yeah.
Right? Or run the same saw.
Right.
Right? Like once we're there, like you you cut some stuff, I'll nail it together, you pour the concrete, and we're good.
Yes,
It doesn't have
let's
to
not
have
spend
a
a lot of
whole-
time.
we don't need a lot of meetings about this at this stage, right? We don't need everyone's voices heard about, do you nail it this way or that way?
Yeah.
Put the
yeah,
nail in.
Yeah.
And yeah, so people showed up on both sides of the equation of joys and obstacles so frequently. I think not just in our group, but also in everyone else's conversations, it sounds like, including people like ourselves, because we're people, right? And so I've also heard from a couple of folks in our group that like sometimes we're our own obstacle and how I translated that, or kind of I'm trying to summarize that collectively, is that there are choices that we can make about who we work with and how we work with them.
Yeah.
That get us further down the road, and kind of push the envelope instead of wasting a bunch of time with a brick wall of a person or a process.
Yes.
Right? Develop and create those relationships that are going to move things further along and bring those brick walls along in the wake. You know what I mean?
That is the hope.
That is an amazing mental image too.
We're clearing the trail.
And the brick walls are coming along.
Just follow us. We're good. We'll get further with people who are simpatico, I think, and have good relationships and networks and processes in place.
Yeah, that we don't have to. This is a teaching. I don't know, method. I don't know if it's a method, but when you've got a classroom full of kids, right? Like if there's one person who does not want to do the fractions right now, it's not like the job of the teacher to like focus the rest of the class on like Billy doesn't want to do fractions, right? Like you have to continue the lesson and then come back and maybe talk individually with Billy, or that like we've got other work to be doing, and we can continue to work with folks. We don't have to leave them behind, right?
Yeah.
I like the idea that we're not just like, you're a brick wall, get out, right? That like you okay, we just need to find a different way to speak with you about this, but we're not bringing the whole group down, or we're not waiting for this, not the whole group,
Right.
For you to get on board.
Yeah.
Is that what you meant?
Not everyone needs to be at the tip of the spear.
Yeah. Right. Right.
And that's okay. And also everyone, like there needs to be a diversity of people who are spear tips.
Yeah.
Right.
That's true. I like that a
Yeah.
lot.
Diversity of people who are spear tips. I like that one.
Yeah. Someone who's not at the spear tip of this prong is probably leading something else that we're also benefiting and gaining from, learning from.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did we have one? Thank you so much. Did we? Yeah. I think we had one more group, but that's okay. If I'm really enjoying the
Funny,
side discussion.
Just as you said, I think Valerie disappeared.
Yeah. She was done.
I like Helen's inserted a thought there if we're waiting for someone else, I just mention that she says, got to meet folks where they are.
Yeah.
We often talk about that's how we get as far as we get with our green building efforts, is we do that with our clients. It is super effective to meet people where they are. Hi, Amanda.
Yes.
Hi.
And Valerie's back on.
Whoa.
Oh, is Valerie back on? No.
No,
Okay.
it's Amanda.
Hi, Amanda.
So I was at a table with Carol and Paisley and Delaney, and some common themes that came out. I think the joy came from learning, building, and people often, and kind of a theme with obstacles were feeling the imposter syndrome, like feeling imposters within our industry, and that came from being new at what we're doing and being in that learning position. You can feel like an imposter a lot, And then even like me being here, I feel like I'm not actually in the construction world because I work outreach for second-use building materials. So I feel like an imposter just being here.
Oh my gosh, absolutely not.
You are such an integral part of the beginning of most of our
Yeah.
experiences.
Yes, yes.
I was having a conversation with Patrick, one of the owners, and he said today that we started the same year as Amazon. So we're just as cool.
Absolutely.
Maybe haven't earned as much money. And so like the joy of learning can also be kind of overwhelming as well. Trying to get in and learn all the things and be there, but it can also be an asset because you can kind of get through problems that people who have been in the industry longer can't see, how to get around, see the solutions that might be just kind of simple to somebody who's walking in with a new thing.
Yeah.
A new idea.
Tries.
And also just like a joy for this group of talking about mental health, because we feel like it's an industry that we don't talk about that in. And
absolutely,
a couple of our members had a loss in their family, so that they feel like they can't talk about it at all in their world and their work. So we appreciate y'all. And that's a phrase that I had never heard before I worked here, and I love it. It's one of my favorite things. I appreciate you.
Oh yeah, I love that too. Thank you.
Yes.
It just feels so good to hear it. It feels good to say it.
Appreciate your courage.
I appreciate your courage too, Amanda.
In sharing and summing mental health. Absolutely. I'm so glad that you brought that up. Is something that we definitely need to address in all of our work, right? And that is a way that we can support the individual. As in all, like as our friends, our coworkers, just to say like, hey, I see that you're having a hard time today. Do you want to talk about it, or do you need to go home? And that it is totally fine for you to go home and take some time for yourself. That like it is important to make sure that the rebar gets tied in time for the inspection for the concrete to be poured. But is the rebar more important than, your teammate, lost a parent or is struggling with something at home? That we need to create space for that, and possibly build our schedules and build our businesses to have space for people to take time off.
Yeah.
Is there anything else thank you so much, Amanda, for sharing.
Thank you.
Is there anything, we're running over time a little bit. Jason, is there anything that we would like to sum up with?
Well, what do you think, Chris? I'm one that usually does that first.
Well, I guess definitely I'd like to say that Jason and I are not professionals at any, we're not mental health professionals, we're not counselor, but there are people in the world who are consultants for businesses, to facilitate difficult discussions, to talk about how to help a business create a plan to kind of draw some of these things out of their employees. Like, how do you want to receive feedback? How should I be speaking to you because you are a audio learner, or anyways, and any of these things that we're addressing, which is like meeting each other on a human level. We're not practiced at this. We know how to make schedules. We know how to write contracts. We know how to use a check thermal transmission in buildings. We know how to do a lot of cool things, but we don't practice a lot about how we can really keep space with it for each other. And there are people who can help us, professionals who can help us. And I would encourage all of you to take the things that you learned today about each other, to think about those things and think about how you can impact your portion, be a spearhead in your in your part of the building industry to raise each other up in different ways.
I'm glad you remembered to make the note about there being real professionals out there in the world that can help us with our efforts to make a more inclusive and joyful and awesome workforce and place and healthy space. I want to suggest that all of you who took time to take a deep breath, be silent, listen, and offer your golden thoughts to us, that you showed up today, and that was awesome, and I'm super grateful for it. I don't want to speak on anybody else's behalf, but I'm seeing in the comments a lot of people who are grateful for the words that were shared today. And I think, like y'all, a lot of you are saying, this kind of conversation is where it starts. Of course, it's gratifying to us to hear that, because that's what we were thinking. But the suggestion I wanted to make is what you said in your group, in your presentation, in your own summary is probably right about exactly what your next step is. So reframe it, think about it. What is your next step? That is what we hope you leave today with in your mind, mulling over at least. What did you hear back from your friends or your mate, the person you just met, the person up on the stage temporarily? You're like, whoa, that person's saying back to me what I said. What did you hear in that is going to create your next step? Because this conversation is a step. Perhaps it was the first step in finding your joy, and maybe more importantly, finding joy for someone else.
So the boats rise together.
Right on.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for giving us this space and giving us your time and love.
Yes.
Thank you too. This was so wonderful and amazing, and people really needed it.
I'm glad.
We didn't know it, but we needed it.
I needed it.
I needed it.
Yeah. So we technically are over, but the room is open till 5.
5?
Like it's happy hour, right? We'll get a beer, a glass of wine, soda water.
That's not a bad idea.
We can continue the chat. So one thing I do want to maybe add is, we're coming off of 18, 20 months of being disconnected, whatever that means, with our teams, our friends, our families. And actually at the Built Green conference, I reconnected with Greg Lotekis, who is not here today. But I just kind of vomited at the mouth. It just, all this stuff that came out.
Because it's inside of you.
And I just I'm sorry, Greg, I don't know where this came from. But anyway, he offered some really great advice and suggestions. And I thought I would share it with the group, if that's all right. For those of us that are working with teams, not in face-to-face or, side-by-side physically. But one of the things that his team does is every day, their team meets for 15 minutes, and it's this red light, green light, yellow light, just kind of check in to see how people are doing. And if you want to expand on that, you can. And it doesn't have to be a work-related thing. It can be a personal thing. And he said what that's done for them is it allows your colleagues to see you and the state that you're in and what you're coming to work with today.
Yeah.
And I was like, that is amazing.
That's every day?
Every day they do it.
That's
And
great.
yeah, and 15, he said we do 15 minutes, but we're kind of a larger team. So it might be like 5 minutes, it might be
Yep.
2 minutes, but max out at 15 minutes because you
Yeah.
kind of go off the rails and we all
Yeah.
have work to do.
And I'm sure that there'll be side conversations, and it doesn't have to include everybody.
Yeah. But if somebody comes to work one day with, just a big giant red light, it opens up the opportunity for your colleague to say, hey, what can I help you with today?
Absolutely.
Or it's like, I'm at a green light. I got all this energy. Let's go. And I just thought that was brilliant. And I thought I would share it with everyone.
Yeah.
So high fives to Greg for that. Look at his elbow when you do it, because
yes.
I didn't know that when I high fived him. It was a disaster.
Can I also say something about how lovely that system is? Often I like to check up on my people all the time, and that will end up being that I will be the receptacle. I will keep holding, and I'll keep holding, and then I'll keep holding. And then I'm the one calling people who are like, hey, so Sean has some stuff going on. So if, maybe we want to like lighten the load today, can you? And then there's one person being the clearinghouse, and maybe that's the HR person at your company. Maybe that's the whatever. But that green light, red light situation where a group gets to handle something, then that means that it doesn't rest on one person.
Yep.
So I wanted to also
sharing
say,
is caring.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It allows us all to see each other and also be the solution with each other.
And yes, to Grace's point, if you work alone, you can do that same check-in with yourself.
Totally.
Or maybe find another group of solos and you just have this, I don't know, Cindy, our WISE group. I don't know if you're listening.
Yeah.
But yeah, Grace, I agree. You can do that with yourself and maybe find a buddy system too.
Yeah. And I think that people used to go and people who used to work by themselves, they'd go to an office. They were all doing disparate businesses, but they were still supporting each other because we're humans and we like that.
People kept showing up as a thread for a reason.
Yeah. So I do want to acknowledge that we are over, and I know Jenny has some wrap up things to say before we hit the floor, and we can continue this on the floor. We can, whatever we want to do. The rest of the day is all up to us, and if we want to leave, we can leave.
Remind me how we go to the floor when it's time.
Well, we will open the floor when I'm done here. I'm going to share my screen, and you guys can turn off your mics and cameras. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Really useful and important conversation you brought to us.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
And I know everyone wants to get back to talking to each other instead of hearing from me, so this is going to be pretty quick. There we go. There's my screen. Okay. So I'm Jenny Hines. I help organize this event. We have a committee, and I kind of try to help people remember what they need to do. So the committee is here shown in the slide, and we really want to thank everyone who was a part of that this year, and then also all of our volunteers from the day of and the small but mighty board of the Northwest Eco Building Guild. Just mention that the Guild has been at the forefront of green building for almost 30 years, and its mission is to empower people through education to transform the built environment for long-term sustainability. And like lots of organizations, the Guild has been going through a tough time. So we really thank everyone who supported us despite your own challenges. It takes all kinds of supports and levels to allow us to continue to thrive. So there are a bunch of ways you can support us. You can join as a member. We'll put the link for that in the chat. You can volunteer, and it's one of the most gratifying ways to support the Guild, and volunteers have always been at the heart of the Guild, and that powers us forward. And there are lots of opportunities to volunteer as well at many levels. So the list of volunteer opportunities is also on the Guild website. And of course, if you don't have the time to volunteer, you can always donate. Any amount is appreciated. Again, thank all of our speakers. They're all volunteers as well. They've come to us to share what they've learned in the last year or a couple of years. And we're at the end of the summit session of the event today. Of course, you can stay till 5, and we encourage you to connect with people. And we hope you'll come back tomorrow night for the slam and more happy hour and more connection with this community. The Guild has some upcoming events. This biomimicry in the built environment education event is coming up on October 27th. And we also really want to encourage you to take the education topic survey. On the floor plan, there is a box that you can click that then will take you to a link to the survey. We'll also put that link in the chat. And for those of you, especially for those of you who were here for the opening, the keynote with BJ Cummings, we have arranged the possibility to do a kayak tour on October 23rd from 10 to 12. And we're looking for your input about who's interested and who can come. And there's a link to that. We also will put in the chat, I guess, to that survey. And the only other thing I wanted to point out was the Carbon Action Plan, which is we are launching at this event. There's also a link for that on the floor plan to get you to a Facebook group that you can join. But the idea behind this, it's a personal 5 to 10 year carbon action plan challenge. It's an initiative created by our own Tom Balderson and Michael Laurie. And the intention is to create a support group for all of us that are working toward reducing our own personal climate impact. So Tom and Michael are going to talk more about that at the slam tomorrow night. And like I said, you can click on the logo on the floor plan if you want to go become part of the Facebook group right now. So now I'm going to invite you all to stay and socialize, go grab a drink, and then double click into whichever table you want to go visit your fellow attendees. And thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Big thank you to you.
Nice job, y'all.
Yeah, thanks, you guys. I'm looking forward to a glass of wine with you all.
We'll see you on the floor. We'll turn the present mode off.
I got to go find some wine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Bye.